let's talk about some formulas that are going to help you do what you need to in terms of your analysis or your output in your spreadsheet. There's a lot of different formulas out there in Excel. Some you may not have used since college, or some you may have never been had any exposure to, but that's what we want to do today, is just give you some top level, some high level exposure to what those formulas are. Again, within the spreadsheet, we've been using some of the other sections. We've got our data here in 11 columns, a lot of rows of data. We've got dates in column B. We've got geographical data in D, E, and F, as well as H, I, and J. We've got some names of companies where the origins or destinations are. And then we have, finally, zip code data and weights in column K. So first of all, I want to show you some of the date-related formulas that we have at our disposal. So again, our dates are in column B. I'm just going to kind of go down the list and show you what we've got. So if we wanted to, let's see the weekday, we can type in weekday, B2, and it's going to give us 5. Now Excel, by default, starts numbering days. Sunday is, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4. Saturday would be 7. So it tells me January 1st, 2015 was 5, which is equal to, that would be a Thursday. So we can do that. We can copy that all the way down. I'll show you a few others. We can do WEEKNUM. And what WEEKNUM shows you is it returns the week number of the year. So again, I'm going to do WEEKNUM B2. Gives us 1, which of course that makes sense, first day of the year. Now Excel starts counting week numbers by whatever week the first of the year is, day number 1. It will count that, and that may be a partial week. So you may see some instances where there's actually 53 weeks according to Excel, but we know that in those cases, weeks 1 and weeks 53 are partial weeks when it comes to the WEEKNUM formula. There's also other derivatives. There's year, so we could type in the year formula that just is going to return the year value since Excel recognizes the cell format as a date. We also have month, and we have day. So those are some different date-related formulas. One other cool trick is, let's say we have another date. So we've got 2 columns of data. I'm just going to pick an arbitrary date here. January 13th, 2015. I'm going to do the difference, but I want the difference in business days. So I'm going to type in network days, select that. So our first date was here, comma, our last date was here, and it's going to return the fact there was 9 business days. Now that's different than just this date minus this date, which gives us the number of physical days, which is actually 12. So note that it actually counts the day you start with. So if you, for example, if this shipment was leaving on January 1st at 5 p.m., and it really shouldn't count as a business day, that's where you may have to go to your formula here in network days and do -1, because you don't want it to count the first, which it's doing in this case. And it accidentally recognizes it as a date format, so we're just going to change that to a number. There we go, 8 days. So that's a helpful one to know. Again, network days counts the number of business days. Let's do some if, or, and logic. Let's go through an exercise real quick where we want to identify shipments that go to, let's say, Walmart as the destination. And we really don't care about all the different distribution centers. So if we click filter here, we can see there's probably going to be a lot of different variations of Walmart DC, which there are. We don't really care about the numbers or the regular or the text after that. We just want to search for that. So one way to do this and identify is to use the search function. So we can just type in search, and then with the quotes, we want to type Walmart, and caps and lowercase does matter here. So we want to search for that within this text. And so it gives us a # value. So what that means is we didn't find anything in that cell that matches Walmart. So this time we need to write some additional code there to go and search for the word Walmart within that cell. So let's go do that real quick. And let's kind of identify why. I see the reason now. So we put a space in Walmart, and Walmart here has no space. So let's try that one more time. Make sure that this is the term we need to search for. So delete that space. We're going to copy it down. So it looks like there's a space here, but in some instances where we just did it, there's no space, and that's where it's returning a 1. Now, let's just change the cell format here to be general. And it returns a 1 when that's true. So one way we can improve this formula is do if error search Walmart, one word, in starting with cell G2. And if there's nothing that pops up, 2 quotes means just return a blank. So let's copy that down. And there we go. It does identify these specific Walmarts that are all one word together with that. Okay, so we know this is a little bit of a problem because we've got Walmart's 2 different variations here. Let's go ahead and solve that problem real quick. I'm going to highlight column G, which is their destination name, and go Control F. And this time I want all Walmart variations with the space. I want to turn that into one word. So it's going to find all Walmarts with the space in between the L and the M. And then this different version is just going to replace it with just Walmart, all one word. Let's try that. See, there's our Walmart. There's some other variations here that we need to count for. We had a leading space there. That's why we couldn't convert that formula. Let's try it one more time. There we go. 11,000 replacements. So now we have a formula that identifies Walmart every time. And maybe we want to, we've got it identifying that as a 1, which is equal to true. Now perhaps we want to know the weight of all these Walmart shipments, and we want it to add up in this column. So there's a couple different ways to go about this. We're going to cover pivot tables in a later session. But in this instance, we want to have the Walmart weight appear in this column, and then we can just do a sum at the very top, and we're going to do cells L2 through L, I believe this goes through 62,000, so we'll just go up to 63,000. So anything there. So right now we've got 18 instances. Because we only copied down to cell 87, so let's double click this at the bottom, and now we've got 11,000 instances. Okay, so we've got a sum for the number of Walmart, for the times that it says Walmart, so 11,000 distinct shipments. Now we want to modify maybe this formula, or we can go over here and create a formula that just gives us the weight. So there's a couple of ways to do this. We could just filter by Walmart. When I type that in, it's going to select everything that starts with Walmart. So that's one way to do it. If we do that, it tells us at the bottom, here's our 11,705 results. So of course it found every Walmart in our destination. Go back and select all. Maybe I want a more formulaic way of doing this. So if error search Walmart in starting with cell G2, and then of course blanks if that doesn't pan out. Now here's where we need to alter this. So if that turns out to be true, so if equals 1, let's put an if statement in here, then we want it to report the weight. And if not, give us nothing. So that's our embedded if statement, followed by what happens if it's an error. Okay. So let's copy this down. And here we go. Here is our weight for all of the Walmart shipments totaling 38 million some odd pounds. So in this case, we use the search formula, which search out a specific term. In this case, we want to see the word Walmart. We use if error statement, and again, it was comprised of our if logic as well as the two quotes, which returns nothing if it is an error. The reason it would be an error is if it doesn't find the word Walmart, it's going to kick back as an error. Therefore, we want nothing to return. So that's one way to get the sum of all the weight of those shipments. So the OR and the AND statements work very similarly in that if logic. Let's say we want to return an X if the origin city is Orlando and it's going to a Walmart. So we could write if, and in this case we need both of those statements to be true. So we're going to write and. We want cert to do in this case cell D2 equals Orlando, and in cell G2 we want to search for Walmart, we need that equal to 1. So that's in our AND statement. If that's true, we want it to return an X. If not, return nothing. Now we know there's going to be some errors here because it's not going to find a Walmart every time. So it's where on the outside we can write if error. We've got our embedded if logic and then nothing if it returns an error. There we go. Now we're going to copy this down. And we should see instances, which we do here, where it starts out in Orlando and goes to a Walmart. The OR statement is just like it sounds. So instead of two statements that are together, like and, both of these things need to be true, it's one or the other. So one could be true, one could be false. That's when you would want to use OR logic. All right, a few more formula tricks here. Oftentimes with text we see, in this case we have all caps. If we have a couple of options here, there's the formula proper. Let's show you what proper does. It's going to just capitalize the first letter of those names, which it sees there. If you have additional spaces, let's say we had a lot of different, we've got some extra space, which is not uncommon for data coming out of a system. We could write the formula trim. C2, it recognizes those extra spaces, and I'm going to copy and paste the value so you can see the difference. And you can see it cut out all that extra space we had just added. So the raw version has probably 10, 20 extra spaces. This has all the extra text cut out. So that's the proper and the trim formulas. Let's say we want to record the lane or the origin and destination pair. So I'm going to expose you to the concatenate formula, one of my favorites. It allows you to essentially mash up different pieces of text. So we'll go to cell L2, we'll write concatenate, and then I want cell D2 and E2. I'm going to show you, we want these as delimiters. So anything within the quotes, it's just going to add that, whatever that is. In this case, it's a space. It's a less than symbol, space with the quote. And then I want H2 and I2. So let's see what the result is. So we've got Orlando to Orlando, and there's no space between the city or the state name, which maybe we want that. So let's just go up here. I'm going to add a comma and a space because that's oftentimes what we have between the city and the state name. That's a little bit better. That's what we want. So we can just drag that down, and it gives us the lane by matching up essentially 4 pieces of data plus a delimiter. So that is the concatenate formula. Finally, let's talk about the SUMIF, SUMIFs, COUNTIFs, and COUNTIFs. So let's propose another quick exercise here. We want to count the number of shipments starting from the state of Florida. So, of course, for those of you who are familiar with pivot tables, this is a very quick test. But perhaps instead of going the pivot table route, you just want to write a quick formula. Let's do this: COUNTIFs, or COUNTIF. And in this case, we want cells A2, and let's go all the way to the bottom of the sheet, which would be row 62039. And our criteria, in this case, is Florida. Now, this is not going to count anything because it's referencing the ID column, and so we need to change that to our origin state column, which is in column E. Let's change that reference field. And there we go. It shows that 48,813 shipments started from the state of Florida, and that's just using one criteria. So it looks at everything in there, and anytime it just says FL, Florida, it's going to count that. Now we can do multiple criteria using the COUNTIFs formula. So let's assume that we want to show shipments starting in Florida going to somewhere in Florida. We can do COUNTIFs criteria range 1, which our first criteria range is here. And of course it's Florida. Our second criteria range then is going to be our destination state. And that criteria is Florida as well. And we see only 7,615 shipments. So that's the COUNTIF and COUNTIFs formula. SUMIF and SUMIFs work exactly the same, and it does exactly what it sounds like it does. It sums it up rather than count the number of instances. So that's a good one to know if you're looking to do some on-the-fly aggregation of data. Finally, let's talk about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So these are your index and your referencing formulas. Now there actually is an index and a match formula. If you have data that's in a grid-like view, index match is a great combination of formulas to use. Let's say in this case we want to know we want to have the month spelled out. So I'm going to write a quick month formula from our date. And so it's got the number of the month, but maybe we want that text to show. So in this case, I'm going to start my range of values that I want it to reference from. So the nice thing about Excel is it recognizes patterns. I just wrote the first 4 months of the year, but I'm going to copy that down. It gives me months 1 through 12, January through February. And here's the VLOOKUP formula. So we want it to reference cell L2, which is our month. We can write VLOOKUP. We want it to look up this value, comma, and then this range of data, comma. We want it to report column 2, so we want it to give that text. And then let's write false. We want an exact match. Close it, and there we go. We can copy it all the way down. Now, natural question is, why did this get the #NA sign? And this is where we get into formula locking. As you see, and anytime you have a question about a formula, you can simply double-click it. You see that range moved down. That's the reason. Because of that, we didn't lock the range early on as we should have. So let's go back up here. To lock it, we just use the money symbol in front of both the letter and the number. So we can do it manually like that, or I'll show you a quick trick. We can use the F4 key when we're highlighting these early on, and it will sometimes do the entire thing, or you can do one or the other. Now you can use this in combination if you just want to lock just the row reference, the column reference. In this case, we need both. So we blocked it. Let's copy it all the way down, and we see that our formula now works perfectly for that VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. Horizontal lookup is the same. It would just be if our data was in the other direction. So let's delete this really quick. I'm going to transpose our data. I'll show you exactly how the HLOOKUP process works. Very similar in the same fashion. So now we can just do HLOOKUP. We want to look up cell L2. Here's the range of our data, and we need row number 2 referenced false because we want an exact match. Close the parenthesis, and there we go. Works the same way. And yep, we forgot to lock our formula. Let's go lock that. There's our locked range, copy down. So it references this way rather than VLOOKUP, which references that way. So those are a few helpful formulas that will help you as you're cleaning sheets or analyzing spreadsheets for whatever that output or analysis that you're looking for is.